welcome to another episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate. That sounds like a game show intro.
That was nice. I liked it.
Come on down. We are your two hosts in this realm of science and absurdity. I am Julian Huguet.
And I am Trace Dominguez.
And if this is your first time listening, welcome. And sorry.
Yeah, we didn't mess it up yet.
Yeah,
so
this
congrats.
is going well. No need to apologize on our part. This is smooth sailing. Don't look down.
Yeah.
Don't look down. This is a show where we take ridiculous, silly, weird, wonderful questions from listeners, and then we go into our little computer machines and we try and figure out some way of approaching them, tackling them based on research on what the science says, what experts say, and just kind of what we think might be funniest. Trace, you have the first question for this week. What's your question?
Yeah, this week I have a question from Anani Mouse.
Oh, another Annie Mouse question.
Yeah, Anani Mouse. And they ask, how easy would it be to break your bones if humans could fly?
Oh.
And they elaborate, birds need hollow bones.
They do.
So if humans had wings, it should be easier to get a broken bone. How much easier would it be? Would hospitals have a considerable amount of extra broken bone cases? And I tackled this one because I find bird bones very interesting. And misunderstood.
Oh?
Did you know the hollow bones aren't actually as big a deal as you think they are?
No, because everybody only talks about how big a deal the hollow bones of birds are.
I mean, they are a big deal. I'm going to get to it.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about them bones. Them bones gonna walk around, because they're going to walk around. So we got to talk about them.
Okay.
They're solid-ish structures. They are the scaffolding with which we are able to do all of the things that we do. And human bones are different, like mammalian and human bones are different than bird bones. But let's talk a bit about our own bones and why they might be okay for us flying, actually.
Oh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So human bones are, again, solid-ish on the outside, spongy-ish on the inside. Bones are made of protein and collagen and minerals, especially calcium. They flex a little bit. They evolved or they were formed in order to do a specific job, which is to have something that muscles can anchor to pull against, and also to, so that we aren't just little blobfish, little sad little blobfish.
Just blobbing around.
Just blobbing around. So it allowed us to move on to land. It allowed us to have, muscles.
You don't have to be carried around by a golden retriever in a bucket, as one question postulated.
Like when you have no bones, exactly.
You need to be carried around by a friendly dog in a bucket.
For your whole life. The inside
question.
of bones are a less dense lattice-like bone called cancellous or trabecular or spongy bone, and then bone marrow surrounds that, and then the outermost layer of your bone is a dense hard layer called the compact or cortical bone. And we think of bones as these very solid hard things because usually we see them as skeletons when they're dried out. But breaking news, skeletons are dead. In case you weren't aware. Just coming across our desk now. Skeletons, dead.
Well, thank goodness. Can you imagine finding a living skeleton?
Skeleton's alive, just with its mandible bone flopped open. Ah! Just the thing is, skeletons that are inside of you, not dead.
Help, a golden retriever with a bucket stole the rest of me.
It's just left a Post-it note. Please find golden retriever.
Return skin organs.
Muscle, please
return
organs.
organs.
Return my tissues, please. My tissues, I need them. Sir, please. So, yeah, the skeleton that's inside of your body right now is not dead. It is alive. This reminds me of that old French saying where Americans we put cheese in the fridge, and the French get really upset about it. And they say, this is because Americans think of cheese as dead. But we French know that cheese is alive.
So skeletons are like cheese.
Skeletons are like cheese.
Skeletons are exactly
and bird
the same
skeletons.
as cheese.
are like Swiss cheese. So they are alive. You're constantly making new bone tissue, and you're taking away old bone tissue. Mm-hmm. You know that saying that's not really true, that you're like a whole new person every X number of years.
Right.
It does apply to your bones as well, although I don't think most people think about that. I think most people are like, my bones, I made them, and they just hang out and wait for me to die, and then they turn into a skeleton, and,
right.
and then I end up at Michael's or whatever, you know?
Right.
Like, that's just how it is.
As a Halloween decoration.
As a Halloween decoration, they spray paint me gold and they put me on the lawn. So the process of making new bone tissue is called remodeling, you know, just like a kitchen.
Right.
We should have more science remodeling shows where it's just like a femur instead of like some Tuscan farmhouse style, like a modern farmhouse.
Skeleton flippers.
Skeleton flippers.
Ew.
Well, we're here on site, construction day number 427.
I'm going to take this late 20th century skeleton and I'm going to spruce it up, and it's them turning like a 30-year-old like me into a 12-year-old. Like,
this guy really needs just a fresh coat of paint in this room. This bone's fine. Do you know how bones are made? But like constantly remodeled? I mean,
cells.
Yeah, totally. You nailed it. Good job. You're
honestly,
smart.
I never thought about it, okay?
Yeah, I hadn't either. That's why I'm taking this little walk here. So remodeling isn't just the soft inner bones or the bone marrow or whatever. It's also the hard outer part of your bone. That's completely, like, it's dissolved and then rebuilt throughout your life whenever it's needed to be done. So there's osteoblasts, osteoclasts, and osteocytes. Osteo means bone. So we've got the blasts are making the new bone, the clasts are breaking down and resorbing bone, and the sites are like the construction site boss. They're the host of this remodeling show. The blasts are the designers who make the new bone, and then the clasts are demo day.
Demolition
I
crew.
watch a lot of HGTV, so this is basically...
This is exciting for you.
It's very exciting. So the osteoblasts are box-shaped, kind of cubey-shaped. They grow new bone, they reshape bone, and they heal damaged bone. They secrete proteins called bone matrix, which is collagen, calcium, phosphate, and minerals, and they can even fill gaps in existing bone. So if you have like a very small like microfracture or something, a bunch of osteocytes will tag that spot, and a bunch of osteoblasts will come in and fix it, you know, which is pretty neat. They just like squirt this bone matrix onto the broken bits. Now, sometimes you got to go the other way and you have to break down and resorb old bone. So then you have the osteoclasts. They're the demo day. They're little rounded domes, and they do this kind of dissolving of your bone with enzymes that break down bone, and they create space for new tissue that the osteoblasts can build. Enzymes dissolve the hard cortical bone matrix and resorb it back into the body, where it can be used for other things or excreted as waste. And then osteocytes, they tell the blasts where to go. They are literally like tagging areas that can be fixed.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why? Like, why is it that my bones need to be remodeled?
This is a good question. This is a really good question.
Like, once the bone's there doing its bone thing.
Right. Why would I need a new femur every so many years? My femur is good.
You know?
Right?
Like, when I see a skeleton, I mean, not in person. I'm not, like, hanging out around a bunch of dead bodies.
You're just hanging out with a bunch of skeletons.
You know? I don't have, like, a bunch in my backyard or whatever. Those were there when I moved in. No, like, a skeleton can last a really long time.
Yeah.
Doing nothing. Like, not being reconstructed all the time.
So, let's say you were using, before your remodeling, it was a 1990s style bone structure, right? You've already gone through puberty. You're a grown person. You're at the height you're going to continue to be. Shouldn't your bone just be like, oh, cool, this is as big as I'm going to get.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
We're done.
Did you play hockey then?
Like ever, or like when I was younger?
Like in the 1990s, when your bone was say, let's fully grown, were you playing hockey regularly?
I was not, actually. I didn't start playing till later.
Right.
Okay.
So your bone density might not needed to have been the exact same. So over time, your bone, just like the rest of your body, like your brain, like all of the bits of you, is constantly adjusting to how you're living. So if you lift a lot of things, if you run a lot, if you play a lot of hockey, if you know, your bones are going to need to slightly, bulk up in different places. Maybe you're running a lot more, so we need to like change how your bone impact. It's going to dense up your bones because you're impacting them a lot. Something like that. You know, your bones are just constantly adapting to your life. It's actually an excellent question that I didn't really explicitly write in here, but I think that's a really good question.
Oh, thanks. I thought of it.
Yeah.
Inside my head bone.
With your brain, the thing inside your head bone.
Bone. People who know anatomy are losing their minds right now. This goes down one bone.
It's multiple. Ow. So in your teenage years, you're growing a lot faster. So you have, you know, more blasts working faster than the clasts. And then in the adult years, they usually work at about the same pace. And as you get older, sometimes that can get out of balance. And so you end up with osteoporosis, which is porous bones. Your clasts have been, you know, your chip, so to speak, has been in there, and your Joanna hasn't come back and been like, yo, we need more bone up in here for the HGTV fans out there. Or the osteopetrosis, which is bones are getting too dense. The Joannas are working too late into the night, and Chip's taking the time off and not getting, not pulling down some bone. So bones are constantly in flux. They're adapting, exercise, weightlifting, movement based on what your body needs. When you see a skeleton in Julian's backyard that's been dead for not as long as you think.
No.
That process has stopped. You're left with just a dried out, the mineral part of your bone, the osteoblasts and plasts. This is where they were when you died, and they are no longer working. And so I wrote that's neat to think about, but I actually wrote that's nart to think about. That's so nart.
It's pretty nart when you
There's
think,
no nart to think about.
it.
Nart.
New slang starting now, right
Nart.
here. It's pretty nart.
So to bring us back to the question, how hard is it to break this bone as it stands? No pun intended. Now, so bones are really good at compression forces, like a bunch of straws, or like if you were to try and take a bunch of toilet paper tubes that are in the middle of the toilet paper rolls and stand on them. You could stand on, you know, several of them kind of standing up, and they wouldn't crush. The bones are like that. We're like a bundle of straws. They're not so good with shear forces. So if you like took a really long bone and you hit it really hard, it would take about 4,000 newtons to break a typical femur, which is the largest bone, your thigh bone. That's about 899 pound forces or 408 kilogram forces, in case you don't easily speak Newton. Mm-hmm. But remember, again, bones constant remodeling. So all of this depends on the person. If you have very dense bones because you do a lot of lifting, or you have some kind of denser bone disease or genetics, that could be a bit more than that or a bit less than that. So if you imagine like a rib or a collarbone, which is very thin, there's not as much tissue around it, because that can also make a difference, because meat around your bone can change how your bone breaks. I'm saying this because of how easy would it be to break your bones if you could fly. If you're flying and you crash, you have a lot of really big forces that are hitting your bones in various ways. But your ribs, they're sort of designed to like absorb some impact. And again, design is the wrong word. They aren't designed, but you get the idea.
They're adapted to, yeah.
They're adapted, right, because a lot of our ancestors must have taken a lot of impact.
Yeah.
And so over time, it made more sense for our ribs to be running front back instead of up down. And that makes sense. So we sort of touched on this before. Let's talk about bird bones.
Okay.
Julian, you are Aaron Aronson.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy, Aaron Aronson.
Boy,
so what 2 words would you use as Aaron Aronson, the science layman, to describe bird bones? If you we're out at the pub and I go, Aaron Aronson, hey, how you been? I haven't seen you, right? You all right?
2 words, stick-like.
That is, you know what? I should have seen that coming.
Yeah,
he has a very specific worldview that I didn't.
Aaron only thinks in terms of mud piles and sticks.
Yeah,
bird
stick-like.
bones, not a mud pile, therefore must be stick-like.
I was looking for a hollow, maybe lightweight.
I don't know if Aaron knows that. I think
you're right. You got right into character there.
I don't think he's ever seen a bird. I don't think like all the pheasants and fowl get eaten by his feudal lord, and
That's funny.
He has to subsist off of mud and sticks.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to have a creative way to be like, how would a layman describe a bird skeleton?
Okay,
and instead,
like a medieval peasant, like British peasantry layman. If we're doing a role-playing thing, like
Julian he went full actor. He's like, what's Aaron Aronson's motivation?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so
how does he really see the world? Okay, yeah, hollow for sure.
Hollow and lightweight.
And stick-like,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and stick-like, of course, yes. What does lightweight and hollow mean to you?
Are we talking Julian now or Aaron?
Well, honestly, I want to know what Aaron thinks, too, based on how thoroughly you're committed.
Right.
But
bad for supporting your hut, but maybe good for the thatching it, the roof.
Sure, yeah. Great.
No, lightweight and hollow, these are things, to me, Julian, as an airplane-obsessed person, are like things that are more optimized for flying, right? When you're flying, you are resisting the pull of gravity. The less weight you have, the less you have to lift up in the opposite direction. So if you can get away, the same way that like airplane wings have a honeycomb structure inside because it is strong, but it is also lightweight because there's a lot of empty space.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the hollow, I think, is easy to kind of wrap our brains around, right? It turns out, though, a lot of scientists, even those who study birds, couldn't really answer this question thoroughly as to, like, what does a hollow bone look like? Why? What does the hollowness of the hollow bone really mean? And what does it look like? Because every bird species has adapted this slightly differently. Which is really interesting. So a bit about bird skeletons. They have a very similar skeleton to what you would expect in a small rodent, say. They're different, of course, because it's a completely different species, a completely different type of animal, completely different evolutionary tree. But they do have things like vertebra and ribs and like what we could easily call arms, but they're more wingy. They have legs, they have pelvises, Some of the bones are overlapping in terms of the expectations. So the vertebra in a bird, some of them are fused together to give a rigid structure that the wings can work on. Then there's the hollow bones, which are vertebra, pelvic, sternal bones, and costal bones. And they have air sacs where the bone marrow might be. So remember, in a mammal bone, we've got the spongy bone, we've got bone marrow around it, and then we have the harder outer bone. But in different species of bird, the air sacs where that marrow might be are in different places. And this is called pneumatization. So like aerating, essentially.
Put an air there, yeah.
Yeah, you put air in it. You put an air on the bird. You put an air on it. You put air on it.
In Aronson.
Yeah. The different birds, though, have different levels of pneumatization.
I don't think you have to say P, but okay.
Pneumatization. And to compensate for the hollow bits, some bird bones are, generally speaking, more dense than mammal bones.
Oh.
So even though they are hollow, they are, quote, according to one of the papers that I found, overall stronger than mammal bones because they are denser, which makes sense since flying and landing require strong bones. The hollow bones do contain like lacy interconnected air channels, cross-branching trabeculae for bone support, essentially a network of open areas. Think of the mines of Moria, right? It's big and open with lots of like lines going across,
right?
But then make it organic.
Inexplicable pillars, and they're like, this was a market. And I'm like, this doesn't look like any market I've ever seen in my entire life. This is a horrible layout for a market. Sorry, just things I'm thinking when I'm rewatching The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, some of it you're like, I'm sorry, why are there that
market
many
and it's
columns?
Just column out.
Why don't you just build a really wide column with a really high, like wide,
domed roof? If you're supporting all that weight, maybe you can like spread the weight out using archways and domes.
Yeah, archways. Come on, arches. They look so much better. Anyway.
You need an open space for people to mingle is what I'm getting at,
I get it. No, I get it, dude.
Okay.
I get it. We're going to have to talk about this on our second podcast. The Fellowship of the Fellowship, where it's just a bunch of us talking about the architecture of the Lord of the Rings. 99% fellowship. I think that's what it should be called.
Middle Earth house remodeling.
Love it or Legolas, our latest project. A 2023 University of Cambridge study used high-resolution CT scans to digitally look inside of the bones of 60 different bird species, ideally to just examine their internal structure and their skeletal pneumaticity.
Stop it.
Pneumaticity.
Stop saying it that way.
The author of the paper, is Daniel Field, wrote that the extent to which bird bones are actually full of air as opposed to marrow has never been previously investigated. And this was a 2023 study. 2023! And they'd never been like, we know birds' bones are hollow. We've known it for hundreds and hundreds of years. How hollow they?
Yeah.
Dunno.
How much of that's air, how much of that's marrow? Yeah, that's surprising to me.
Yeah, isn't that surprising? So they scanned 60 humerus bones, which they thought they were pretty funny.
It's pretty funny.
But not, like
So
kind of.
stupid.
So, yeah.
Saw that one.
I had to head you
Saw
off
that
because I knew you were going to make it. I had to
coming
get it right in there. They found larger birds tend to have more air filling their air-filled bones, and their bones are generally thinner. Because remember, again, not every bone that the bird has is equally hollow. They did confirm that bird bones are actually more dense, and their scans found a wide range of pneumaticity in bones, from the apus apus, the common swift, which is sort of like a swallow. They had an 11% air in their total bone volume, but then there was the Asioflammeus, which is a short-eared owl, the only native owl in Hawaii, actually. And that was 66% air space. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot of air. The mean was 43%, though. So birds are like, half air, a little less in their bones in the mean. So and another unrelated researcher, Matt Weddle of UC Berkeley, found that some birds, as they grow, they use air sacs from their lungs and they sort of invade their bones, which could be part of how this evolved, they think. So it forms tiny little hollows that stay there for their whole life, and they can use them to breathe in and out at the same time, which is just awesome and super neat, and chickens have that. It's just cool.
We may have talked about this on a previous episode, I forget, but do you remember how somebody discovered that birds are using their bones to breathe?
No, I don't remember this.
I forget the specifics, so forgive me, but apparently a long time ago, like a few hundred years ago, sometime around then.
They gave a bird a bagpipe, and the bird was like, no problem.
Yeah, I can do this all day. It was a Scottish bird. And so there was a bird with a broken wing, and the bone in the wing was exposed. The guy who finds this bird decides to do the humane thing and, put it out of its misery. And for some reason, he decided that drowning was the best way to do this. And so he tried to drown it in a barrel, and its broken wing bone was sticking out, and it wouldn't die. No matter how long he held it under for, it would not die because it was still getting air to its lungs through the exposed bone in its wing.
Whoa. That's freaky.
That's nuts, right?
Well, no, it's a bird, so it's not a nut.
Oh, thank you for clarifying.
We did that
on this
episode
podcast.
Already,
I don't know what's a nut. I don't know what's a banana.
It's a legume. What is it? What is it? That one's not a nut.
Okay.
That one's the bird / dinosaur. That's wild. I don't think we've talked about that. That's very cool, but that's really neat. So anyway, my point of all of this is to compare mammal bones to bird bones, because the assumption is if you had to fly, you have to have these hollow bones in order to fly. Do you think that is important? Because it's actually really not that important. There are other things that are more important when it comes to flying. But what we're really talking about isn't so much human flight, like if humans had bird bones. We're talking about if it's easier to break those bones. And there aren't a lot of studies that I could find directly comparing the two, but because there's less need for the info of whether a bird has broken its leg and how much force that took. But in 1982, in the Journal of Experimental Biology, they found no significant difference for animals large or small, including some birds, that the bones would break more easily or less easily. It seemed like across the board, all of the mammals and all of the birds and everything that they tested in this study, generally the bones broke at about the same force level. But again, bird bones are overall stronger than mammal bones because they are denser. So if humans had wings, this is what we get from our question from Anonymous, if humans had wings, it should be easier to get a broken bone. That logic isn't sound. as it turns out. And I would have thought that that's the case, because I think hollow bones, they must be more fragile. Because whenever we do get a chance to like hold a bird or hold a bird skeleton, they're so light. They seem so fragile. But in fact, they are stronger than mammal bones. But what we are holding is typically something that's quite small, right? Even a big bird relative to a medium-sized mammal is kind of small. Right? You can get mammals that get gigantic and birds do not. So to answer the kind of part of the question, would hospitals have a considerable amount of extra broken bone cases? In reality, they may have way less broken bone cases if we all had bird bones in some ways, but the bone design does have a major disadvantage. Can you spot the major disadvantage of a semi-hollow bone? Say again, a mean of about a half of the bone being air.
It whistles in the wind.
If you blow in one end,
we'll have harmonica bones.
Do you give Pepper your doggy bones? Are they solid bones, like mammal bones?
They are
usually,
solid.
right?
They tell you not to give your dogs like leftover chicken bones because they splinter.
Booyah. That's why. So if you and I had hollow bones and you say your rib bones are semi-hollow and you ran into something and shatter your bone, you're probably not going to get to go to the hospital and get fixed because it's going to really splinter and shatter. Like bird bones are stronger, but when they do break, they break very severely. Whereas mammal bones, when they break, they tend to break, quote unquote, cleanly. They can knit back together at that break. But bird bones, you're probably not going, you're probably done.
Done using that appendage.
You don't need
whatever that thing was.
You've shattered your femur into lots of little splintery pieces.
Yeah, maybe walking's not for you anymore.
Yeah, maybe that's just not your thing. But you remember the other word that I was like looking for when it came to bones? Like that sort of answers the question, which the question was, again, how easy would it be to break your bones if you could fly? It wouldn't be any easier than you have it now. In fact, it would be about the same. But when they did break, it would be way worse.
Catastrophic.
So we don't want that.
Okay.
But the other thing with these is the skeleton is lightweight. Right?
Right.
You hear this all the time. Like, hey, bird skeletons, man, they sure are lightweight. You literally said it when talking about like airplanes and like, oh, they're lightweight. Lightweight compared to what?
The full bone, the 100% bone. Right now,
100% bone.
Right now, we're talking like a 2%
43%.
bone, but I'm talking the full fat bone, you know?
Full fat, yeah. You want like
the whole bone.
Heavy. You don't want diet
I don't
bone.
want whole bone HOLE. I want WHOLE.
Yeah, got it.
English is a confusing language.
It is, yeah, English is tough.
Too. I want the whole bone, not the hole in the bone.
In another paper in the Proceedings of Biological Sciences from 2010 about bone density and the lightweight skeletons of birds, they wrote, quote, many people, both the lay public and many biologists, assume that given a bird and mammal of the same total body weight, the bird skeleton weighs less. Did you assume that?
I sure did. Of course I did.
Based on that quote, I no longer do, but that is because they don't. When you say lightweight, we assume like, oh, well, you have a bird and I don't know, like a rat that's the same size, mass, then the skeleton of the bird weighs less. That's not true.
That's bananas.
Amazing. Isn't that great? No, not a banana. It's a bird, Julian. It's not a banana.
I don't know what things are.
We've known this since the 1970s. Why didn't I know this?
Yeah, I don't know. Everything I ever was taught was like, oh, they're hollow, so they're lightweight.
Right.
Everything.
And yes, they are lightweight in terms of the lightweight for that bird, but relative ratio-wise, the amount of skeleton mass is the same to the mass of the bird. Like the ratio of skeleton weight and tissue weight is roughly the same between mammals and birds, according to this study. Meaning, a bird skeleton for the bird weighs as much to move around as a human skeleton for the human, ratio-wise, right? Like it's relatively speaking the same. And the paper wrote bird skeletons contribute as much to total body mass as do the skeletons of terrestrial animals. And remember the CT scan paper. They wrote, previous studies systematically overestimated the proportion of bone volume occupied by air as a result of disregarding the presence of soft tissues within the pneumatized bird bones, and found no evidence to suggest that increasing relative body mass correlates with any further increase in humeral air volume. So it's not like a bigger bird had a more hollow bone, which was also a big assumption. So really interesting, but the real reason that birds can fly isn't necessarily because of their hollow bones. It's really down to three things. Smaller bodies, they are very small. And again, square cube law, which we talk about a lot on this show. Because they're smaller, they just have less mass, less volume. The body has a high surface area to mass ratio because of the feathers and because of how they're constructed, so to speak, with their wings and their small little legs and their fused vertebra and then their hollow bones and so on and so forth. They just don't have to carry around as much. And then gross morphological characteristics that confer strength and stiffness. So thin-walled, long bones, round cross-sections, fused elements, muscles that anchor in their chest and in different places
the keeled
that they're very
that
good
we've
at.
Talked about,
That we've talked about many times. Although not every flying thing has the keeled sternum. We haven't really talked about that much, but like bats fly and their muscles anchor around their shoulder blades.
They all fly
which is
differently.
Pretty cool.
Yep.
They fly differently than the bird does, which I thought was kind of neat.
Speaking of, right, we talked about the different lineages, right, and how we and reptiles split off long ago, and how, birds have hollow bones. But yeah, you bring up flying mammals like bats, and as far as I know, they don't have hollow bones.
They do not. I looked it up because I was like, oh, maybe bats have hollow bones. We can talk about like how human flight, like how that might affect because they're very agile in the air, etc. But like bats can't even hold up their own body weight. Their bones, their femurs, cannot hold up their own body weight, which is why they hang from the ceiling. Because they can hang and the stress on the bone is fine with the pulling stress, but a compressive stress. Julian, give me your best dinosaur roar.
Oh, God, an asteroid! It's horrible!
Wow, that was not where I expected that to go. We're popping in before the show to tell you about I Know Dino. It's a dinosaur podcast.
We think of those dinosaurs being this thing that's been dead for tens of millions of years. Even so, studying dinosaurs can still teach us stuff that is relevant to the world today.
Yeah, like climate models to help us understand global warming.
Migration patterns of dinosaur lineages, they tell us about Earth's changing continents.
We can also study dinosaur diets, what plants lived then and maybe what animals and how they interact.
And, this is super cool, many dinosaur injuries, paleopathologies, they're the first known occurrences of diseases.
And they talk about all this kind of stuff on I Know Dino. It comes out every week with new dinosaur stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Like I hadn't heard of a lot of these, which is pretty cool.
You can find I Know Dino on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are. And if you found us, you can probably find them. Go check them out.
They wouldn't be able to stand up. They just don't do that. They think they evolved, by the way, to fly. I'm sure, Julian, you know this, but because they used to glide.
Yeah.
There was some mammal that was like, I jump a lot. And then they adapted and they're like, ooh, I glide. And then they're like, ooh, if I flap while I glide, I can fly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah. And so they just stopped walking around and they just like kind of crawl around or hang around.
So yeah, you don't necessarily need hollow bones to fly. And also, thinking of another way of approaching this, dinosaurs had hollow bones.
They didn't fly.
Non-flying ones, right? So like, it's not a requirement for flight, and you don't necessarily need to fly to have hollow bones, right? This might be an exaptation where it was originally an adaptation for one thing, and then it kind of gets parlayed into another use.
Right. And I think that's so neat because the two words we associate are hollow bones and lightweight skeletons. And it turns out maybe neither of those make as big a difference as we talk about them.
This is kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Like this reshaping like something I learned 30 years ago and just have never examined since.
I just thought that was so neat. Nerd. Sorry, nerd.
That's very nerd.
It was very nerd.
Nice job.
That's fun.
Again, like I said, had not re-examined this.
Same.
Especially, I've learned that dinosaurs had hollow bones. I knew that bats didn't, and I never just thought, maybe taking another look at, they're hollow, so that helps them fly.
It's one of those things that we learn as a kid, And we just like, okay, I put it up on the shelf on my in my brain storage, and I just leave it there. And you're ever like, oh, hollow bones, so they can fly.
I think it's one of those more, not so much put it on a shelf, it's one of those like foundational facts that you build a lot of your world on top of. Yeah. And then to go back and look at it again, you're like, oh, wow, that's... I gotta exhume a lot of stuff to get to this first and reconfigure this.
Yeah, that's true. That's funny. Anyway, why don't we all just like sit with that for a minute? We'll take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll have another question. All right, so with that, thank you for listening to that ad break. Whether there was an ad there or not, hopefully there will be someday. If you want to advertise on our podcast, please send us an email. But, Julian, what's your question?
If you have like a local pizza joint.
Yeah, whatever. We'll do it. Jared's Pizza. We'll talk about
cheap.
it.
Right now, we have $0 in ad revenue. So.
Yeah, you can advertise for your local school carnival, your cakewalk.
Book
Did
fair.
You guys do cakewalks? Where it's like everybody in town bakes a cake and they all bring it to the school festival.
This is a thing? I thought a cakewalk was an expression.
Well, we called it the cakewalk. And then you put money in, like $10, and you get to stand on and it's like musical chairs, and you stop when the music stops, and that's the cake you get to take home. Cake? Yeah, that's your cake. This is the most, I realize as I'm saying it, I'm like getting more embarrassed because it's like the most Michigan, like Midwest
this is
thing
extremely
that
Midwest.
I can imagine.
This is the most Midwest idea of a good time.
It was so fun. It was at like the school carnival. Sometimes the cake wasn't good. You really wanted to get certain people's cakes.
Talk about things I've never re-examined, though, of like, I've heard the expression, oh, it's a cakewalk, and I never thought more of it. I'm like, oh, maybe you walk while eating cake at the same time, but no, it's musical cakes. I don't know
where that phrase came from, but that's
Michigan, I assume.
Look, if it comes from there, the cakewalk was pretty easy. Nobody loses. You get a cake no matter what.
That sounds great. Worst case, you have a maybe not great cake. Like...
Yeah, and even like a mediocre cake is still better than a lot of things.
Than no cake.
Yeah.
Take some cake over no cake. Much like us with advertisers.
Wow, are we desperate or what?
No.
So really though, what's your question?
Okay. So, my question this week comes from a sun-stealing crow who managed to peck out on the keyboard an email to us. And Sun Crow asked, how big would the moon have to be to make you weightless?
Ooh,
yeah.
Interesting.
I really like this question. I actually selected this when we were polling our Patreon. I threw this in there and it didn't win. And I went, you know what? I still love it. I'm still going to take it.
Yeah, so, I'm so glad. That's so interesting. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
The crow elaborates, how big would the moon have to be to make you weightless? Like, it would have to be directly overhead to affect your gravity, and it's pulling on the ocean, so it's obviously pulling on you too. Would you hover in midair if it were the size of the Earth? Let's magically hand wave aside the issue of the two celestial bodies slamming into each other or weird orbital mechanics going wonky. We all know what happened to Theia, which, in case you don't know what happened, that's the proto-planet that smashed into proto-Earth, and then the moon was the result of the collision, basically. It's why we think we have such a relatively large moon, actually.
That's true. It's not about the moon, it's how it moves the ocean, I think is what they say.
Yeah, that's not the size of the moon.
It's the motion of the ocean. I think that's what it is. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Okay.
I just saw Ponyo this week at the movie theater. It was my kid's first time in a movie theater and went to see Ponyo. If you haven't seen Ponyo, it's great. I hadn't. But the moon gets very close to the Earth and it messes with the ocean. I mean, it's a variety of other things are messing with the ocean in that movie. But yeah, I was like, I actually thought about this while I was watching it. I'm like, if the moon was that close, we would have other problems.
What comes to mind for me is, did you ever play Majora's Mask?
I never did.
Oh, it's so... I only went back and played it recently.
It's so good.
So no shame. If you got the N64 collection on your Switch, you can go and you can still play it. It's never too late.
No, I want to play it. I do. I want them to remake it so that I don't have to worry about an N64 camera motion.
Fair enough. Okay. But yeah, over the 3 days in that game, because it's like a 3-day cycle and then time resets and then it goes again.
Oh, cool.
By the third day, the moon is like directly over the town. It's crashing into the clock tower, and it's got this horrible grinning face, and it lives in my head forever. Okay,
creepy.
That's what I think of. But let's talk about our current moon and how much it affects us, right?
Yeah.
So for this, I'm going to use Newton's law of universal gravitation. The formula for that is the force of gravity equals the gravitational constant, g, times the mass of one object, times the mass of another object, over the distance between the centers of those two objects squared, the center of mass. So in order to calculate how big this moon would be, I'll just set F for the Earth and F for the moon equal to each other. Now, Crow asked specifically how big the moon would have to be. So I'm going to assume that bigger, better, badder moon is still the same distance from Earth's center to that moon's center as our current moon.
That's very far.
Yes.
Yeah.
To compare, though, to give us kind of a baseline, let's talk about our current moon. When it's directly overhead, does it change how much you weigh?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would, right? But like such a minuscule amount.
Yes.
Because I am so minuscule relative to it.
There's
so small, so insignificant.
Oh, don't spiral on me. Don't spiral. I need you here. Well, I did the math.
Oh, good.
Let's imagine you're on a boat on the equator, right? So you're at sea level. You're about 6,378 kilometers from Earth's center. And in this scenario right now, there's no moon. It doesn't exist. The only thing we're taking into account is the Earth and the pull of the Earth, right? So if I plug all these numbers into Newton's law for universal gravitation, right? I use 64,000 kilometers for the radius of the Earth. The mass of the Earth is about 5.97 septillion kilograms, or 5.97 times 10 to the 24th. And then the gravitational constant, you don't need to worry about it. It's just a number that makes all the math work out so it matches what we observe. I plug in all this, and I get a acceleration at this point of about 9.8 meters per second squared, which is, I'm sure, the same thing you're taught in all your physics classes. Yeah.
Right. Or 32 feet if you are in inferior.
Per seconds squared, right? That's how much you get accelerated towards the center of the Earth. Just to find out how much you weigh, you just multiply that number by your mass. I have a mass of about 68 kilograms. That means I weigh about 666 newtons. The devil's number of newtons, or 150 pounds, right? Because pounds is weight, kilograms is mass, they're different things. But newtons is also weight. If I were to put the moon directly over my head at this point, and I plug in all the relevant numbers, like the mass of the moon, which is 73.5 sextillion kilograms, and the distance from where I am to the center of the moon's mass, that's about 378,000 kilometers.
It's a lot.
That would mean the moon is pulling up on me with an acceleration of... Do you want to guess how many zeros are going to come after the decimal point?
5.
Oh.
6.
Oh, you're
5.
About an order or a magnitude or two too small. But it's 0.000034 meters per second squared.
Okay, so 4 zeros, 3, 4.
Yeah. So that would reduce my weight by about 0.0023 newtons, or 0.0005 pounds.
Oh, wow, that's very little.
Not
very, very little.
Not very much at all. The main thing, you mentioned the difference in masses between, the moon and the Earth, but really, the big difference maker here is the distance between the Earth and the moon, right?
So how many 0 pounds?
How many pounds? 0.0005 pounds.
Wow.
Decimal point, 3 zeros and a 5.
That's like a shaving off of a U.S. penny, since 0.01 pounds is 9/10 of a U.S. penny.
Oh.
According to my favorite website.
Yeah. Our favorite website. I now have Stockholm Syndrome with this website. I've learned to love it. Now, the reason distance is much more important is because you can tell by the equation that Newton's law of universal gravitation is an inverse square law. The observed intensity of gravity is inversely proportional to the square of the distance of the source. So the distance is going to have a much bigger impact on how strong gravity feels compared to the mass of the object.
Right.
And Crow said, specifically, how big would the moon have to be?
So if it's at the distance that the moon is,
It's going to have to
the moon's gonna get real big.
a lot bigger.
Get real big.
Other things that follow inverse square law, by the way, are the intensity of light, the intensity of sound, radiation, those sorts of things, right? That like radiate from a central point.
It's not intuitive.
I think it kind of is, right? When you see like a light bulb and you're close to it, you're like, it's really bright. And then as it moves farther away from you or you farther from it, it drops off pretty substantially, right? And that's because it's
I guess maybe it is intuitive.
Law. Okay, so I'm going to do all this math again, but I'm going to do it so the force of gravity and the force of the moon's pulling on you cancel each other out.
Same.
And I'm just going to solve for the mass of the moon, keeping the distance the same.
So you need a mass that goes from 0.0005 to 150 pounds.
That's right. I'm going to have to figure out what mass of the moon makes that kind of a jump.
That's a big multiply number. Big.
So, by my math, I get that the moon would have to be 21 octillion kilograms.
Oh, no.
It's 21 times 10 to the 27th power, or 21 with 27 zeros after it.
The moon is saying, look at me. You are the moon now.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, because the moon would be over 3,500 times the mass of the Earth.
It's a lot.
Which makes us the moon now.
We are now the moon. We're the moon.
To put this
I'm the moon now.
in perspective, the most massive planet in the solar system is Jupiter.
Right.
It's about 2.5 times as massive as all other planets in the solar system put together.
That's a lot.
Do you want to guess what fraction of Jupiter's mass this new moon is?
1.
You're kind of onto me, because it is a trick question. Jupiter is a fraction of the new moon's mass.
I was going to say, I think Jupiter is smaller.
Isn't even a tenth as big as the mass of Big Chungus Moon.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, so in my head, I'm like, thinking about this is, okay, if the moon is that close, if I jump up and down, it's not like the sun's mass pulls me up into the air. So the fact that the moon is closer means that it doesn't have to be as big as the sun, but it needs to be a significant fraction of the sun's mass.
Okay, so it would be about 10 times as massive as Jupiter. Well, more so than that, right? Jupiter's mass is 1.9 octillion kilograms. New moon is 21 octillion kilograms, right?
Wow.
That's still not big enough to trigger fusion. I was looking into, like, what's the minimum kind of size something has to be in order to actually become a star. And assuming it's the same, makeup of a star, like mostly hydrogen and then helium and, the proportions on down, it still has to be about 75 times the mass of Jupiter.
Oh, wow.
So
we're well under that.
Still well under that. So we're more in brown dwarf territory here, which is about 10 to 80 times the mass of Jupiter is what I found for things that we would call brown dwarfs or failed stars, which also felt very mean to me,
Yeah, that does kind of feel mean.
Who moved to LA to work in film. Just the words failed star are very triggering for me.
I was going to say, John Rhys Davies as a brown dwarf was already quite famous. He is not a failed star.
A lot of Lord of the Rings references, and I'm okay with it. And he was fantastic. Have you heard the stories of the stuntmen who are like, he just beat the crap out of us? He just...
No. But amazing.
Apparently, this is a Lord of the Rings sidebar, so hold on, let's get some...
Welcome to Fellow Fellowships.
But apparently the stuntmen were like, hey, if you hit us while we're doing the fight scenes, that's okay. It won't really bother us, but, please don't. And then the stuntmen were like, he hit every single one of us, like full force, like did not hold back.
Amazing.
Anyway, okay, now back to Big Chungus Moon. So... now I started thinking, if this is about 10 times as massive as Jupiter, how freaking big is this moon going to be?
Yeah, it's a big moon.
Yeah, or, well, again, we're the moon.
Well, big planet.
New planet.
Really.
They're in charge now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jupiter is also the largest planet in the solar system. It has a radius of about 70,000 kilometers, a little under that. But it's gaseous. right? It's one of the gas giants. It does not have the same density as the rocky planets like Earth, Mars, or another rocky celestial body, the moon. So if I were to take the moon's average density, which is about 3,340 kilograms per cubic meter, and I plug that number in to figure out how big Big Chungus Moon would have to be, I would get a radius for the new moon of 114,000 kilometers, which would put it at 1.6 times the size of Jupiter.
That's big. That's really big.
It's quite big.
Wow.
Keep in mind, the distance to the center of this moon from where we're standing is 378,000 kilometers. So the surface...
We are so close.
Yeah, the surface of the moon is now 264,000 kilometers away. We've taken about like a third of the distance to the moon out. We brought it that much closer.
Because it's important to remember the center of mass is where we're going to orbit from. So it's not like the surfaces of the planets stay the same distance apart. It's the centers stay the same distance apart. Okay, got it. Right. So now it's a third closer to us.
Yeah, to the surface.
Because of but it's still, wow. It would dominate the sky.
That's where
what an amazing view that would be. So cool.
That's exactly where I'm going next. So you host a little show called Stargazers on PBS. Do you ever talk about apparent size, angular diameter?
We don't really talk too much about that because it's mostly about stuff you can see in the night sky where you like that week. And so sometimes if there's not an exciting thing in the night sky to look at, which there's always something to look at, but say, if it's been a lot of circumpolar constellations or it's Orion and then a few others and then we've done, sometimes I'll take an episode and do like an introduction to something. And so we'll do, distances between stuff, but we don't usually do like arc seconds and like degrees of sky and stuff like that.
Right.
But how many degrees of sky would this be?
Right. So let's first just kind of introduce that whole concept of angular diameter or, angular size in the night sky, right? When we're describing things that we're observing in the sky, they seem to take up like a little wedge of the sky, right? You can see 180 degrees above you, basically. So how many degrees that something takes up might be helpful describing its apparent size, not its actual size, because the farther away it is, the smaller it's going to look.
The shortcuts we use are if you put out your pinky, that's a few degrees. If you put out a fist, I think that's 10 off the top of my hand degrees. And if you make a shaka, Hawaiian like, hey man, far out, that's like 20.
Correct.
Degrees.
Yeah. A pinky's basically 1 to 1.5 from what I could find.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's if you extend it out arm's length and you look at
arm's length and hold it out. You're like, that's 1 degree roughly of sky. And then 3 fingers or like 4 fingers or whatever, or 3 fingers or 3 fingers is 5, a fist is 10, so, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So current moon takes up about half a degree. So half a pinky. Because it's smaller and things in the night sky get smaller still, a lot of the times they're described instead with arc minutes and arc seconds. An arc minute is 1/60th of a degree, and an arc second is 1/60th of an arc minute, right? So with all that in mind, the new moon directly overhead, how big is it going to be? It's going to take up 35 degrees of the night sky.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be 70 times bigger than our current moon. So a shaka and 1.5 fists.
Yeah,
across.
Almost 2 shakas.
Yeah, almost 2 shakas.
That's so much.
A shaka and a half.
So much. That would be amazing. I'm in. You sold me. I want it. Let's have it happen. I'm into it.
Huge. This is, and I have in my notes, late stage Majora's Mask. Like, just big scary moon bearing down on us. Now, Crow said we don't have to delve into orbital mechanics, but I just think it would be fun to think about.
Come on, Crow.
Come on, because we got to think about the implications, right?
Is this an Everybody Dies TM? Situation?
Honestly, we'll parse that out together. But in order for these two bodies to not, crash into each other, for the Earth to not spiral down and become a part of new big moon, to Theia itself, how fast would we have to go around this moon? What would be our orbital period?
Oh man, fast.
Because
orbit is falling and missing.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
That's right.
So you're going so fast that the gravity of it, which is going to be big, a lot, is not going to pull you into it because you're moving fast enough that it pulls you and you just miss as you're falling. And you just keep missing because you're still falling.
Right.
Man, I'm going to guess 50 times faster than we're moving now.
Well, so the moon currently has a sidereal period of 27.3 days, right? It goes 360 degrees around us relative to where it started in 27 days. In order for us to not crash into the moon, we would have to go around it in 11 hours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
So, like,
so 27.3
what did you say?
days times 24 hours is 655.2 hours. So 59 times. I was pretty close.
Yeah, you were pretty close.
59. I was not that close. I'm like a good fraction off. But yeah, 59 and a half times faster.
Yeah, we would be.
That's a lot.
Whizzing around this thing.
That's really. We're international space stationing.
Yeah.
Around this giant thing.
Kind of. Yeah, they go around once every. They go like 90 minutes. Yeah. They're pretty quick. But same idea. But is that going to affect our cycles of weightlessness and then like double weight and then weightlessness again? No, it's not. It's still going to depend on the Earth's rotation, right?
Is the Earth going to rotate, or are we going to be tidally locked?
Ooh, you know where I'm going with this.
Oh, I do?
Yes.
Oh, because I'm just like, if we're moving that fast, we're that close, and it's that big, I can't imagine how we would maintain any kind of not ludicrous rotation.
Yeah. You've got the right idea, because it really depends on how this happens. If we're in That's Absurd, Please Elaborate universe and we have a magic wand that makes our listeners' wildest whims just happen.
Yeah. We have our button, our magic button.
Yep, the boop. Oh, now the moon is gigantic. If that's the case and the Earth is still rotating and has a 24-hour or so orbital period, then you're going to have a 24-hour cycle of like weightlessness, then double weight 12 hours later, then weightlessness 12 hours later again, right? It'll be like a big sine wave of what your weight does. But as you mentioned, tidal locking is a thing, and it's not uncommon at all. It's just a natural phenomenon of when something is orbiting a massive object, right?
Yeah, the moon is tidally locked to us, our current moon. Oh, and for those that don't know, tidal locking means that the same face of the celestial body always faces the thing it is orbiting. So you see it a lot in exoplanets, where like a giant hot Jupiter is orbiting a sun, that star somewhere, and they're like, it's going around the star every 10 or 12 days or whatever, and it's always facing the same direction toward the sun.
Well, even in our own solar system, there are 20 known moons that are large enough to be round, and they're all tidally locked to their primaries, right?
That makes sense.
And it's not just a coincidence, it's a natural consequence of how this whole thing works, right? When a large body is orbiting another one, because of the distance from the near side of the moon to the far side of it, you get a little bulge, right? Because gravity depends on distance, as we talked about. That's why it's so important. The nearer side has more pull than the farthest side. You get a little bit of a bulge. And if it's spinning, that bulge is offset. It's not pointing directly at that primary object, the planet. And so the planet pulls on that and kind of brings it more in line until eventually it's
slowing until it just is always facing the center of the object that it's orbiting.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool.
And that's why our moon looks like that. And so eventually our Earth, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but probably millennia, like how it happened, we think, with other moons, eventually the Earth is going to get tidally locked with Big Chungus Moon. And
Big Chungus Moon.
And at that point, on the side directly under Moon, you're going to have a weightless environment, which I can't even imagine how that's going to work. And I also imagine that would be fairly delicate, where, if any sort of change in distance could start actually accelerating you towards Big Chungus Moon, and there isn't anything you could do to stop it.
There'd have to be a big wall. I think. There'd be a big wall.
You'd have to wear
somewhere.
like an ankle strap, like to hold you down. Yeah. And then on the other side of the Earth, you've got double the weight, right? Because you've got the Earth's pull and the giant moon's pull all in alignment, pulling you in the same direction.
That's neat. Because, to think of our first question, if people lived on this Earth next to Chungus Moon, this Earth moon next to Chungus Moon, and they lived and had evolved near where Chungus Moon was, but not obviously under it, or they probably never survived, they would have less dense bones than something that might have evolved on the other side of the planet where it was more gravity, more weight.
Yeah.
So they would have to have denser bones.
You might get radically different organisms on one side of a moon like this compared to the other, which would be insane.
That would be very cool.
Kind of a cool thing to think about. This is also, this tidal stretching and squeezing is why some icy moons like Europa, we think, might have life underneath it because these same forces are constantly squeezing it and pushing it. And so we think it might be actually providing some mechanical heating. Yeah, and maybe have an area under an icy crust that's hospitable to life, which is why we're going to actually try and check this out with the Europa Clipper mission that NASA just launched. So
neat.
Yeah, it's a concept that even though this is an extreme example of it, it's something that astronomers think about and actually using it to possibly try and find life in other places. So that's pretty cool. I do want to say, though, this is a tiny little gripe time aside here at the end.
Gripe time!
So Suncrow mentioned that it's pulling on water, right?
Yeah.
This is a thing I see with some mysticism on the internet every now and then, where people try and defend, the moon has an effect on you because it has an effect on water and you're 70% water.
You're 70% water, so it pulls on you.
I've seen that, and it's not that it only is affecting water, it's that water is a liquid that can flow around the Earth and actually, produce a tidal bulge that's very obvious when it's being pulled on by the moon because of these tidal forces that we talked about. The moon and water don't have a special relationship compared to any other mass. It's just a liquid and there's a lot of it. So
and it's not restrained.
Yeah.
If you put a cup of water on your countertop, you're not like, I can see the moon pulling upon it.
Yeah, have little markings on the side of the moon's pulling on this glass of water. No, it's just a lot of water flowing to the side that the moon is on, or, being left behind on the other side and producing what looks like another bulge, but really the Earth's just moving away from that. Anyway, so that's my little gripe time segment.
Gripe time, yeah.
I really, really don't like astrology and the bad, nonsensical thinking that sometimes people have to defend it. So there you go. Suncrow, I hope that answers your question. How big would the moon have to be to make you weightless? It would have to be 21 octillion kilograms, 3,500 times the mass of the Earth, or over 10 Jupiters.
That's too many Jupiters.
That's quite big.
I just want to say I like Jupiter. She's great. I love her.
One's enough.
That's too many Jupiters. Yeah. You just want one,
One's all you need.
Wow. What a weird episode. And you know what? Kind of feels like a classic one. Like we haven't done one this classic in a while. And I appreciate it very much. Yeah, that was really good. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of That's Absurd, Please Elaborate. The show was created and written and produced by that guy over there, Julian Hugo.
And that guy, Trace Dominguez.
The show was produced and edited by the 1.4 Jupiters, Kyle Sisk, but emotionally, not necessarily physically.
A man who our world revolves around him, Kyle Sisk.
Us personally.
Yes.
He is our Chungamoon. The associate producer of the show is Sabrina Capello. The intern of the show is Charlie Woodbury. And our music is thanks to Epidemic Sound.
Thank you to listeners who submitted questions featured in this episode. Annie Mouse and a sun-stealing crow.
Wow. I love it.
This is a very cool folk tale that's developing. If you would like to submit questions, you can look for the form down in our show notes, or you can email us like the crow did at hello@that'sabsurdshow.com. You can visit our website, that'sabsurdshow.com/ask. You can call us at 302-TAPE-SHOW. That's TAPESHO. We love these questions. Your brains are so beautiful and strange, and they make us giggle and laugh and make the show possible. So, as always, if something weird pops into your head and you send it our way, we are very appreciative. We love them.
Thank you so much. I'd like to also thank our absurd administrators, Adam, Les, Austin, Jonathan, Evan, Dan, Sabrina, The Brain, and Silver Skies. And also, happy anniversary to Dan and Sabrina, who they've been the absurd administrators of the show for 3 months. So congratulations on your 3-month thingy. Absurdiversary. Because of the patrons like Sabrina, Dan, and all of the other patrons on our Patreon, we get to keep this show going. As we have joked about, we aren't getting any ad revenue at the moment. Everything that we get is from you, the patrons. So thank you so much for your support. It means the world to us. It means 10 Jupiters to us. And you get little perks, of course, if you join the Patreon, like voting on the questions, like Julian mentioned, for our polls. You get little thank yous from us, a personal little video chat from us as well if you get to certain levels. So if you want to join the Patreon, go down into the show notes and you can join it there.
Or sometimes some bonus content. Sometimes there's a snippet from the show that doesn't quite fit in the full episode, and we just throw it up there like, hey, you want an extra 3 minutes of content? Here you go, as a thanks.
And if you saw on our social media that Julian did the blueberry experiment, very cool. I'm so glad that you did that. The patrons saw it pretty like a week at least before the social media got it. So you can get some things a little early, and we try and make you all feel part of the family. So thank you so much to all of you who have joined.
If you want to join our Patreon, go to patreon.com/that'sabsurdshow.
You can leave us a review wherever you're listening right now as well. On Spotify, give us some stars. On Apple Podcasts, give us some stars and write some stuff about us. If you haven't told a friend about the show, this week is the week. Bones and moons and who's not into this kind of stuff. Just share the show with one friend, please. Help us grow so that we maybe someday do get ad dollars. Maybe someday we can do a live show in your town. But we can only do that if we continue to grow. So thank you for everyone who has.
You should casually ask your friends why birds have hollow bones, and then when they give the wrong answer that all of us would give, and you'd be like,
yeah, me too.
Actually, I heard on this podcast, and then it'll be very organic.
Sounds like
it.
Very, very organic, super cash.
Just bring it up. If you're in an awkward elevator ride, like that's the time to do it.
Everyone there.
Yeah. Why do you think birds have hollow bones? Yeah, they'll love it.
See what they say.
They'll love it. It's better than the weather. Oh, it's hot.
That's true.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, man, the commute today sure was a pain.
Oh, yeah? Well, if we could fly, are you worried that we'd have more broken bones?
Ooh, see, now that, you see, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the thing right there.
That's it. Be the most interesting person on the subway. But like in a good way, not the...
Finally, a special thanks to those listening on Nebula. People who are listening there are directly supporting the show just by listening to the show. You can go and join, visit go.nebula.tv/that'sabsurdshow. You can just listen to this show and any other podcast that Nebula has, but you can also see originals. You can see some of your favorite YouTubers. They have videos on Nebula as well, and by watching any of those creators, you directly support them. People like Real Science, Real Engineering, Legal Eagle. We've got a lot of different creators out there. And some, like I said, some really cool originals like Jetlag from Wendover Productions, the makers of Half of It's Interesting. It's just a really fun place to watch videos. I really enjoy it. But like we say at the end of every episode, our catchphrase, bones or nart?
Bird bones are pretty nart.
Bird bones are pretty nart.
Oi, them bird bones is pretty nart. And stick-like.
They're quite stick-like, them bones is.
Sticky.
Them bones is, ain't they is?
Ah, the moon!
Oi! Look at the moon right now. It's got a giant grinning face right there.
I bet this has something to do with that little elf boy.
Like we say at the end of every episode, I didn't write down any catchphrases this episode.
I think these are all excellent. I see no problem.
I see no problem
with bird bones are nart.
Thanks for listening to the show. We'll see you next time with another episode.
You stuck through the credits and look what it got you.